Yo, all right, this is another one. Make sure y'all say hi to each other. YouTube, say hi to Twitch. Twitch, say hi to YouTube. All right, guys, it's going down. This is part 5. This is the last part of the video. This is the last or installment of the series here of the Caro Kann. Y'all made it this far. It's part 5. It's part 5. It's part 5. The fantasy variation. People really wanted this one. People were actually asking, yo, we're going to cover the fantasy variation. And in fact, there's this cool line in here that I'm actually going to show you. And it's more ideas wise, guys. Not like all the move orders. Don't get all caught up in all the move orders and all that stuff, right? Bruh. Because it's important to understand the ideas, right? But yes, you do want to know some moves here. And obviously the Caro Kann is always the same, right? So as we go through this, let's get through it now. E4, C6, D4, D5, and F3, which is the fantasy variation. I actually have a video on YouTube from the white side of this, actually, but now we're looking at it from the black side here, and let's see what it says. The fantasy variation is an original way of meeting the Caro Kann. White solidifies his center by defending the E4 pawn right here with another pawn and aims to maintain control over the central squares that black is fighting for. The drawback is quite obvious. White weakens his position and takes away the F3 for his knight. The positions that arise here are quite different from the rest of the positions that are discussed in the book. These pawn structures and how this stuff, bro, this gets crazy. Bruh. This stuff gets strange here in the fantasy variation. So, right, in fact, E6 is what he recommends here in the book. We like this move for simplicity. Simple, right? Simple. You don't want to really complicate things as much. Black calls time on trying to develop the C8 bishop to add an active square and instead proceeds with the kingside development. Black threatens to play d takes e4, so for instance, random move here. In fact, even a move like knight to c3. Or like I've seen this. We've actually done this in our arenas here, where f3, e6, knight c3, pawn takes, right? Actually, sorry, knight c3 wouldn't do it. In fact, it would be maybe another move because knight c3 actually does defend it, but just showing what we're actually threatening after e6, maybe c3, which makes sense. Pawn takes, and then queen h4, and that's a wrap stir. After g3 or something, like you just take the pawn. You in trouble. You're in trouble, right? You're in trouble. Why would black? Why would a black block in the white bishop like that? That's a great question. In fact, you're gonna see what we're gonna do with it later. You're gonna see what we're gonna do with it later. So let's see. Very great question. Great question though. Okay, so e6, knight goes to c3. Right, you also have a bishop e3 here as possible. If bishop e3, d takes e4. Again, if f takes e4, they show this cool line. Boom, check. You take the pawn, and you have a pawn you develop afterwards. Right, we move the queen. We try to trade. Trades are always generally good in every Caro Kann I've ever studied. You're usually good when you trade. Usually from what we've seen, right? So knight f3, knight d7. We make some more moves. We get developed. It looks good. After d takes e4, they say something else. Knight to d2 instead, sacrificing the pawn. E takes f3 happens. Knight takes knight f6. And it says knight c4. Position after knight c4. They're saying that this is described as an important maneuver, but black can play knight d5 here. Okay. Bishop d2, b5, c in here. Yeah, I can click the button, I know, on the board. I can click these. I do know that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Donnie. Thank you. Thank you, Donnie. Here, let's go over here to e6. After e6, knight to c3 is the move, actually, that was played. I think that's the general move, and bishop b4. I actually like this move. It puts pressure on the knight, renewing the threat of, like, for instance, a3, bishop takes, and you back in this. I mean, that's a common trap that somebody's going to get caught in. Bishop to b4. Just like black does so often in the Caro Kann, he develops his bishop. The also intention is to put the knight on e7, kingside development first. This bishop we're going to worry about later. That's why we play e6. We're talking about solid, right? And we asked about this bishop earlier. What are we going to do about this bishop on c8? It's absolutely garbage. Garbage. Absolutely trash, right? But we are going to deal with this later. But we want to deal with kingside development first. Bishop b4 and knight e7. Maybe castle, right? And then maybe some queenside play, which you're going to see how we're going to activate it later. After bishop f4, pretty cool move, right? You also have these other ones here that I recommend you go through. After bishop f4, say, look, what was the next move? Knight e7, following the plan. Queen to d3. This is actually a shorter line too as well, guys, because this is more about ideas more than it is like all these move orders and stuff, because this is a shorter line of the book. In fact, this is one of the shortest in the book. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for gifting 3 subs, big fella. Thanks for the 3. Thank you for that. Castles from black here. Also b6 was an option, but again, watch what black does. Castle queenside from white. This is an aggressive option. White goes knight d7. I love this idea because watch what happens next. After h4, in a practical sense, this move right here, c5, opens everything up. This right here is like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is very nice. This is some type of accelerated French, like, but they kept the pawn here like a delayed French. Because the French, first off, like, just like, I'm not with it. But in fact, if you delay it like this, and then you play c5, especially with this king on the c file, this is very cool. Also, with the queen coming out to a5, you can take on c3. You have a lot of play here. A lot of play, right? D takes c5 from white. I mean, white was going to take on d4. So it takes on c5. Knight takes, queen e3. Bishop gets to d7. Rook goes to c8. Knight g to e2. Watch this knight maneuver, bro. Knight to a4. Bruh. Yo, this is amazing, right? Knight a4 is a novelty. That's what the N means. N means novelty. That means it's new. Yeah, that's some new stuff, right? Knight a4 and then h5. h5 move if e takes d5, which is a common move. Wow, that queen a5, I actually missed this. So, that's a sweet move, queen a5. What? Boy, that's crazy. Gives black excellent compensation for the pawn as both players are only focused on the queen side. That's legit. I remember looking at this line though, knight a4 and after the h5 move, looking at queen a5, and we're showing a sample line because of course your player who you're going to play is going to play something different. Obviously they may not even castle queenside, but what we're looking at is the ideas. We break with the c5 later. We play e6, make everything solid, play knight d7, develop the king side quickly, break with c5. So even though the king might be over here in those games, you still follow the same plan of what we're going to break on c5. Maybe still play on the queen side, but the king's over here. In which you do see minority attacks. If you think about in the Caro Kanns, we talked about this earlier. Minority attacks in games, right? We're going to use these 2 pawns against these 3 anyway, strategically, if the king is over here placed anyway on the king side. Usually, fantasy Caro Kann players like to castle queen side, aggressive sense. So the c5 break makes more sense, especially with the rook coming to the c file, right? It's very like Jedi material here if you really learn it, you understand it. Yeah, so bishop takes a4, a3 hits the bishop. Cool queen sack or bishop sack here. Rook f to c8. I was not expecting this at all. I mean, this is crazy. Takes, rook takes c2. I'm like, bro, this is a Caro Kann? I had to like look back at the book, bro. Is this a Caro Kann? Like, this is crazy, right? And all of this, right, he takes on b2. You're like, bro, this man losing his mind. He takes on b2. He takes back. Queen takes. Bishop takes d1. And I'm looking at this position. And then he checks him. And then it says draw. And I was like, I was like, wow. But then I had to think about, okay, well, most people, like, these are very strong. These are very, very strong moves. And most likely the person you're playing, we're not getting all the way here, right? But the funny thing is that this ended in a draw. And there are going to be some mistakes by your opponent, and maybe by you too as well, that are going to happen here, right? Again, from the jump here, as we come from the beginning, as that Caro Kann fantasy variation starts with, let's actually start from the beginning, right? c6, d4, d5, f3, something you're not used to. Then we're going to play actually the e6 move is what we recommend. Boom, e6, very solid. Develop the king side. This is the plan, right? Develop the king side first. Of course, develop the king side. And then we're going to play knight e7. We get castled. Then we worry about everything else. King side first. Get the queen side out, right? The knight goes to d7, and we play c5 quickly. Quick c5. c5. Knight takes c5. Bishop d7. All right, and you just play on this side of the board, obviously, from here. I really never seen anyone play e6 versus fantasy. In fact, you know what? I have, from the white side of the fantasy variation, I actually do have a lot of theory on it, and e6 is actually the most solid. Believe it or not, e6 is the one that they say, and this one is the most solid. The queen b6 one is not as good. The e5 one is very tactical, but white has very good tricks there, and black has to be very, very careful. The e6 one, in fact, they said was the hardest one, or the tough nut to crack was what they call it, because it's very solid. If you look at this position right here, let's go back to the beginning. If you look at this, look how solid this is. Yes, you have a bad bishop on c8, but you're going to get it out with c5. And you can even play b6 and bishop a6 very quickly. But this is very, very solid. And of course, Caro Kann players and the Caro Kann itself is in itself a very solid opening. So right, guys, this concludes it. This is the fantasy variation, but this is the Caro Kann series. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. This is the 5th video. We got the Banco Gambit up next, the Banco Gambit series. So that's gonna be we're gonna start that one, I think, like in a day or so. But Banco is coming up next on Forward Chess. So yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next video.